Ohio State, one of the most consistent teams of the last 12 years. In that time frame, they have won 90% of their games, and that includes 7 bowl games and a national championship in 2014. But being here in the South, I always get told Ohio State, they could never last in the SEC. So now that we can do this in college football 25, I decided to put it to the test. What would happen if we took Ohio State and we dropped them in the SEC? Here we are. We're going to take Ohio State out and we're going to put them into the SEC. This conference is going to be stacked. Here's the schedule. We've got a tough one here. We've got Alabama, Texas A&M, Oklahoma, Penn State, and we're ending the season with Michigan. A crazy schedule. It's not going to be an easy one for them. And if you look at this conference, it is stacked. Look at how many ranked teams are in this conference going into the season. Ohio State's first SEC in-conference opponent is going to be Kentucky. This is a team, I guess if you're going to cut your teeth on, this would be the one to do it. But I will say this, Kentucky is sneaky good, and sometimes they walk away with a victory, but not this time. Ohio State was going to come in and get the victory 59-27. This is going to take us to week 4. We're taking on Florida at the Swamp, our first true test in the SEC. But Ohio State would lose in a heartbreaker by 1 point. But Ohio State is going to have to rebound quickly because they've got Alabama, the team that has probably been the best over the last 10 years coming into their town. They are number 15 in the country at 2-1. And this is going to be the true test for all those SEC fans. Is Ohio State for real, or are they just going to be the team that they all thought they would be entering the conference? This takes us to 23 seconds left in the game. Will Howard is driving. It's 4th and 12. They have to get this to keep the drive alive. Will Howard drops back to pass, looks, he fires, and an Alabama defender catches it, and that's going to end it, folks. It's going to be 36-31. Ohio State loses at home to Alabama, and we're 5 weeks into the season. I'm going to be honest, I really don't like the way that this looks. I kind of want to go back to the Big Ten already. The rest of the season would not go as planned. We would get a huge win over Texas A&M, which would give us hope that we were going to turn things around. We throttled Arkansas, but after the bye week, we lost to Oklahoma 28-21. And then it rounds out the rest of the season. Penn State, Akron, South Carolina, and Michigan. And we would go 2-2 in those last 4 games, losing to Penn State and Michigan yet again. Carson Beck would win the Heisman, and I don't know what's more impressive. His season of 42 touchdowns and 3 picks, or the fact that EA made him look like a model despite him being one of the ugliest quarterbacks we've got in the country. Anyways, Ohio State would take on University of Texas San Antonio in the Gator Bowl, where they would absolutely destroy them 45-16. Ohio State caps the season off kind of on a positive note after a disappointing debut in the SEC. But that's not where it gets weird. Tulane plays Notre Dame in the national championship. What crazy college football multiverse are we on right now? To make it even crazier, Tulane wins it. They beat Notre Dame in the national championship, something that probably nobody or their mom could ever have predicted. Notre Dame's absolutely stunned. Maybe Ohio State having a bad first year was a fluke after all. Ohio State, a school typically known for their great recruiting classes, falls all the way down to 17th in the country. 1 year into the SEC, and we are seeing a drastic drop-off already. This season in year 2 is much easier. We've got a big game against Texas A&M, but other than that, Florida and Michigan are our only big games of the season. We should have a better record. Ohio State would start off much better. They would lose to Auburn, but quickly rebound and beat Texas A&M to where they would win 3 straight. Now we're getting into the season where they have a few easy weeks before they end the season with Florida and Michigan. It's Florida going in to Columbus. They are ranked number 4. Ohio State is the top team in the country. Last year, Florida was able to squeak one out against Ohio State by 1 point, but the stakes now are much, much higher. This is Ohio State's biggest test so far in the SEC. Home field advantage seemed to be a huge factor here. Ohio State would blow out Florida 48-19. As an Ohio State fan, you love to see it because Florida has absolutely crushed my dreams as a child. Devin Brown would have a great game, 278 yards and 2 TDs. And this begs the question, has Ohio State arrived officially in the SEC? But even with winning that game, still the most important game that you have to win to be able to keep your job as an Ohio State head coach is to beat Michigan. I will say, even after all these years, graphics cannot fix the fact that Michigan has one of the ugliest uniforms in the country. But let's see what happens here. With 27 seconds left in the fourth quarter, Devin Brown would fire to his receiver on the right side of the field, putting the Buckeyes in field goal range to can this field goal to end a 4-year drought against Michigan. They would win 29-28, capping off a fantastic regular season. Now to the SEC fans' worst nightmare. Oklahoma and Ohio State have made it to the SEC championship. These are two teams that SEC fans constantly say they don't deserve to be in any big games because they play in a cupcake conference. And you know what I gotta say to that? With just under a minute left, Ohio State has an opportunity to tie this game up with a field goal. The kick is up, and it is good. Ohio State would tie the ball game at 31-31, taking the SEC championship into overtime. Oklahoma in the first overtime would throw a swing pass, and they would get into the end zone, scoring first in this overtime. But Ohio State would quickly respond with a quick touchdown, tying this up, and they were going into the second overtime. With this one, you have to score a touchdown and get the 2-point conversion. Ohio State here, 38-38, second and goal. Got motion here. They hand it to the motion man, and they get into the end zone. Ohio State has to go for 2 here, and they don't get it. So all Oklahoma has to do is score and get the 2-point conversion to win the ball game. Oklahoma throws it, and on a dot, they get a touchdown, and all they got to do is get into the end zone here, and they win the ball game. Ohio State stuffs them, and now we're going in to triple overtime. Just a refresh, we do 2-point conversions until somebody does not get in. Oklahoma gets absolutely stuffed by Ohio State. Ohio State, if they get this in, they win the ball game, and they get stuffed too. Now we're going into a fourth overtime. Ohio State, they get the ball first. Ohio State's under center, waiting on the snap here. You got a motion man. They hand it to motion man number 4, and he gets in. 2-point conversion is good. Oklahoma has to get this in to keep the game alive, and they get stuffed. It's a fumble, actually, and Ohio State would recover, and they would win and beat Oklahoma, winning the SEC championship 46-44. Ohio State winning their first SEC championship since being a part of the conference. Ohio State clinches a playoff berth, and they're going to play Georgia. Georgia beat West Virginia, and here's the crazy thing yet again. Tulane is the 4th seed in the playoff. I just got news for you. They better win 12 games this coming season, or college football 25 is a fraud. The country is expecting another epic showdown. The last time these teams met, it came down to a field goal where Ohio State would miss and Georgia would go to the national championship. The game would not disappoint, where Ohio State and Georgia would go into overtime, and on this play right here, they would throw the ball into the end zone, and Ohio State would beat Georgia, getting their revenge the last time they played in a bowl game. And Ohio State is moving on to the next round to play the winner of Texas A&M and Tulane. All is right in the world, where Texas A&M would beat Tulane, and they are going to play Ohio State in the semifinal round of the college football playoff. Ohio State faced them in the regular season, where they would come out with a win. Let's see if they can repeat here in the playoffs. We've got 1:37 left. Ohio State in the gun, trying to win this ball game. They drop back to pass. They look, they fire across the middle, and it gets batted down at 2nd and 10 for Ohio State. You got Brown in the gun, waiting on the snap. Drops back, looks. He's got all day, and then he gets sacked actually by number 11. It is 3rd and 22. This is not looking good. Ohio State with the hurry-up offense. They're waiting on the play. You got Brown in the gun. He drops back. He looks. He's got time. He fires, and it's over the head of his wide receiver, and it is 4th and 22. Their season is on the line right here. You got Brown in the gun, drops back to pass, looks, it's got some time, fires, and it is incomplete. Texas A&M would come away with the victory, 35-21, getting revenge on Ohio State here in the playoff. Ohio State, even though that they did not have the opportunity to win a national championship, rebounded big time here in their second year in the SEC. This would show that the world would be whole again. Alabama wins the national championship, beating Texas A&M 34-31. Alabama captures their first national title without Coach Nick Saban. Hopefully last season helps us out in the recruiting. Well, we're not in the top 13. That's awesome. How far are we gonna go down? All right, go ahead and cue the Jeopardy music. Are you kidding me? 89th in the country? We are in the likes of North Texas, Arkansas State, Navy. What's going on? Even with that whack recruiting class, somehow we have managed to be the number 4 team in the country going into the season. Ohio State has a much more difficult season this year. They've got Georgia, Alabama, Florida, and Michigan. Year 3 in the SEC, Ohio State in the 4th week opens their SEC play against 3-0 South Carolina. In a dominating first quarter, Ohio State was able to beat South Carolina 52-36, starting their SEC conference play at 1-0. They hope to continue this momentum when they take on Georgia the following week at the Horseshoe. Here we are. We've got the biggest game of the season where Georgia is coming to Columbus. You got Georgia ranked number 1, Ohio State ranked number 3, and this is going to be a battle. Last 2 meetings they have had, both in the playoffs, have been absolutely electric. This game is going to set the tone for the rest of the season. Georgia came in and won in a wire-to-wire victory. They got revenge from the playoff game last season, and Ohio State takes their first loss of the season. The struggles would continue when they would lose to Auburn their following game, but they would quickly beat Vanderbilt, and now they come in 5-2 against Alabama. This is going to be another big test for Ohio State. If they want to get back on track, they have to win this ball game, but it's going to be a tough one here in Tuscaloosa. This game so far has been a hard-fought one, and we are in the 4th quarter. Alabama is up by 1, but Ohio State is in the red zone with 1 minute and 40 seconds left. They drop back and they fire, and it's going to be a touchdown. Ohio State is taking the lead late into the 4th. Here we are. They're going to go for the 2-point here, and this is going to put them up by a full touchdown and an extra point, but they do not get it. All Alabama has to do is to get in the end zone. A minute 35, 1st and 10 in the gun. Drops back, looks, got a little bit of time to throw, gets it across the middle. Number 14 gets to the 50 and more. They are across midfield. It is 2nd inches, just another play later. Minute 14 left, drops back to pass, looks, fires across the middle, and gets it. They quickly call a timeout. Here they are in the gun, 1 minute, 9 seconds left. Drops back, looks, fires into the end zone, and Ohio State picks it off, and they are able to get a huge win here in Tuscaloosa, something that does not happen often. This is a great rebound win by this Ohio State team and keeps them in the SEC championship race. What a huge win moving on to the following week. That win would put Ohio State inside the top 10. They're sitting at the 6th spot at 6-2. They would carry that momentum through the rest of the season, where they would go 3-1 to close out the year. They lost a very close one to Kentucky, 21-19, and they were able to start a streak. Hey, I'm just saying, beat Michigan 2 years in a row, 23-20, and they are ranked number 3 in the country going into the playoffs. Ohio State would open the playoffs against Tulane. Tulane continues their dominance in college football. I need you to drop a comment down below. Are they doing this in your dynasty, or is it just mine? Either way, It's freaking crazy. Here is the college football bracket. Before we jump into the game, you've got Miami going against Alabama, and the winner of that will play Georgia. Then on the other side, you got Florida and Purdue, which is crazy that Purdue's in there, but the winner of that's going to go to Clemson. Oregon and NC State play, and the winner is going to play Nebraska. But here we are in Columbus in a nice snowy evening. This is what football is all about. Tulane is coming up to the cold. This is something that for me, I love to see Southern schools come up here and face the elements, something that they're not used to. But here we are in the fourth quarter. Tulane is up on them. Ohio State is driving. It's 1st and 10, but they complete a huge ball, and they're going to get into the end zone, and Ohio State is going to tie this ball game up late in the fourth quarter. All right, here we go. It is tied. Last play of the game. Ohio State drops back. It's got plenty of time. Throws it deep. Is this going to be the victory here? And what's the flag? What's the flag? Pass interference. No way. This is going to be insane. So this is going to put them in field goal range. Ohio State has a chance to squeak by Tulane here and advance in the playoffs. The kick is up, and it is no good. Ohio State and Tulane are going into overtime, something that nobody could have seen happening. Here we are, 2nd and 2 in the first overtime. Ohio State has an opportunity to put points on the board first, and they do. Ohio State gets into the end zone here. They're going to take the lead going into this second overtime. Tulane has an opportunity to respond. It is 2nd and 10. They drop back. They're looking. They fire one big one across the middle there, and it's going to be 1st and goal. In the gun, calls a little audible, gets the ball, drops back, throws, easy touchdown. Tulane is going to tie this ball game up, and Ohio State and Tulane are going into the second overtime. All right, they start the ball off with the second overtime. Tulane drops back, they throw, and they get in on a acrobatic dive there. Tulane is wanting this game. It would be a crazy win for them, especially in Columbus. But Ohio State has an opportunity to respond here. It is 2nd and 7. They get the ball, they drop back, they look, they fire, and touchdown! What a crazy throw and catch right there. He just squeaks in a foot. Ohio State is tying this up. Since Tulane did not get the 2-point on their possession, Ohio State has an opportunity to win. But they would fall just short going into triple overtime. All right, we're doing 2-point conversions until somebody doesn't get in. Ohio State is starting this overtime off. They're in the gun. They try to squeak one in, and the quarterback is just short, and all they have to do here is get in the end zone, and Tulane pulls off the victory in Columbus. An absolute shocker here, and Ohio State's season comes to a close. Tulane's dominance arc has continued here, and they're going to move on to the next round of the playoffs. But that would not be enough for Tulane. They would play Troy the following week, and they would lose in a close one. And then Troy would take Georgia all the way down to the wire, but Georgia's experience would help propel them to a victory, taking them to the national title. And then we look on the other side, Clemson's road. They had to beat Purdue, and then they were able to take on Nebraska in the semifinals, but they would ultimately lose to Georgia in the national title. The SEC wins yet another national championship. Here's my favorite day, National Signing Day. Ohio State has been absolutely abysmal the last few seasons in their recruiting. Let's see if they can get a good recruiting class. If they don't, this could ultimately be the downfall of Ohio State. Obviously, being an SEC contender and making playoff appearances does not mean much to recruits. I'm beginning to think that we're not spending any of that NIL money that we've got. But this is pathetic. We are down here with Cincinnati, Houston, Virginia Tech, North Texas, Maryland. What is Ohio State doing? Look, if you're an Ohio State fan, I never ask anybody to click off my videos, but I can tell you, it doesn't get better from here. Ohio State would have an absolutely brutal schedule. This is something that mirrors kind of their first year in the SEC. They're going to be playing Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Georgia, Washington, and then they're going to close out that season like normal with Florida and Michigan. This is going to be a gauntlet for Ohio State to go through, and here we are opening SEC play against Ole Miss at Ole Miss. This would ultimately be the season of L's. Ohio State would get the L against Ole Miss, LSU, Texas A&M in a close one, and then they would lose to Georgia yet in another close one at Georgia. I told y'all, it got ugly. But could they save the season by beating the team that we absolutely hate the most, Michigan?
A hat trick of losses, and as a result, you can take their hat out of the ring for most.
And to make matters worse, Michigan made it to the national championship where they would ultimately get the victory. Not gonna lie, kind of regret doing this video. I would love to end it here, but we've got one more year to go. We come into this final season, and what do you know? Ohio State is now a 4-star program. They are not really a championship contender, and the coach prestige has dropped down to a C+. And the downhill slide continues as we scroll down to basically the bottom of the top recruiting classes. I have never seen a fall off so bad as Ohio State at 61 in the country. They have no 5-star recruits. This is phenomenal. And for the first time, I literally think in my lifetime, Ohio State is not ranked in the top 25. Ohio State yet again would have a tough schedule where they would have Wisconsin, Georgia, Texas A&M, LSU, and per usual, they're going to end the season with Florida and Michigan. Just take a wild guess what happens next. I saved you guys the time and me the embarrassment. Ohio State would go 6-6, the worst record since Luke Fickell was the interim coach in 2011. They would go to a meaningless bowl game and they would lose. USC would reclaim their dominance and win their first national championship since the Matt Leinart and Reggie Bush days. Obviously, this video did not go the way that I expected, but it was still a fun one to do anyways. Drop a comment down below. Let me know what teams you want to see switch conferences. I'm always down to try new things. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and we'll catch you in the next one.